Hi, good afternoon. How are you all doing? I hope all of you are enjoying this journey of folklore and culture studies with me. My name is Abhilash. I'm a student and a culture and a folklore enthusiast. And welcome to session 12 of Folklore and Culture Studies. So, if you are joining this session for the first time, I strongly recommend that you start watching this podcast from session 1 or listening to this podcast from lesson one so that you don't miss out the flow. All right. And without much ado, let's do a quick progress check of where we stand. I follow the MA IGNU curriculum, and MA IGNU curriculum has four parts. The first part is folklore and culture conceptual perspectives, under which we have four blocks. Sorry, under which we have block one, right? And under block one, we have issues and methods. And under block one, we have four units. We are done with unit one, unit two. Currently, we are in unit three. And what is unit three? Unit three is folklore and allied disciplines, which means the relationship between folklore and the related disciplines, out of which in the previous sessions we are done with with anthropology, and we're also done with anthropology was one, and the second session was gender studies. And today what are we going to cover is we're going to cover the relationship between folklore and ethnomusicology, right? The name must be sounding interesting, so without much ado, let us jump into the subject. All right. So today's topic is the relationship between folklore and ethnomusicology. Right. Let's understand what is ethnomusicology. Ethnomusicology is the study of different music cultures, especially the non-Western ones. All right. So here you go. Folklore has also led to the development of ethnomusicology. This stresses the importance of music in and as culture, right? So it stresses the importance of how music is a part and parcel of everyone's life. And this sees music in the cultural context, right? I mean, music can be seen from a different perspective, right? It can be seen from a perspective of entertainment, and it can be seen from a perspective of driving a particular story from a movie perspective. But today in this topic we will cover how music is seen from a cultural context, and this was first used by Zapkins. Now, early researchers of ethnomusicology borrowed from allied fields and disciplines such as ethnology. Ethnology is the study of different races, in a scientific form. And anthropology is again the study of human culture, human development, their origin. Musicology is the origin of music, and psychology is study of mind, right? So early researchers, so before the ethnomusicology came into existence as an independent subject, the allied fields or allied disciplines where early researchers borrowed their content or borrowed their study from was from these disciplines: ethnology, anthropology, musicology, and psychology. Some of the important topics that it discusses are the origin and universals of music, musical change and conflict, function of music in society, and relationships between language and music, right? Isn't this interesting and imperative as well? So language and music always go hand in hand, although the other way of looking at music is they say that music is about emotion. So even if you don't particularly understand a particular language, it strikes a chord with a particular emotion a song has or tries to portray. This is more from a pure music perspective. As pointed out by Charles Seeger, no such single definition is correct, and which is why this topic is interesting, right? Because the subject is not black and white, right? It has shades of gray in it. You have a lot of overlapping disciplines as well, and which is what we're trying to do. How you know folklore is related to or forms the union between other disciplines as well. So there's no such single definition is correct. And also from the for the fact that, see, there are a lot of people, researchers from different school of thoughts, from from different academic approaches. So it's impossible to have a common thinking, right? Or to come to a common conclusion or a common definition. And therefore, we can't confine ourselves, or the study can't confine itself to a particular subject, or sorry, to a particular definition. So in general, one can say that music in real tradition and living musical systems are the important concerns that have appealed to ethnomusicologists, right? So what does it mean? It means that in general, music in real tradition and living musical systems are important concerns, or are important reasons that have appealed, that have found its place, or found its attention in the field of ethnomusicologists. Although the formal study is quite recent, the formal study of what? Of ethnomusicology is recent, but interest in non-Western music dates to as early as 1768 with efforts of Rousseau, right? Rousseau we've already covered in, I believe, in one of the academic approaches. So I mean, before the formal study, the interest in music, the dates go back to 1768. In the 18th and 19th century, missionaries, civil servants, and world travelers took an interest in exotic music with the advent of phonograph. Phonograph would mean in instruments to record music, particularly instruments like gramophone and other related instruments where music could be recorded and played, right? So with the advent is arrival, right? So with the advent of invention of phonograph and the development of pitch measurement, recording of music were added to the collections of instruments, song notations, and photographs, right? So these after these devices were formed, measurement and recording of music were added to the collection of folklore, a collection of instruments. Song notations and photographs were also sort of added. Nationalism also promoted the revival of interest in folk songs, right? So we know that nationalism plays an important role in driving the folk culture or reviving the folk culture. Moving on, the efforts of Bela Bobok and Zoltan Kodaly are noteworthy. After the World War II, two professional societies were also formed. So two societies were formed. They were international. So the first one was International Folk Music Council in 1947, and the Society for Ethnomusicology in 1955. So these were two formal societies which sort of come into existence and add a lot of content and information from an academic perspective of ethnomusicology. In the late 1950s, they were divided into two camps, one led by Alan Merriam and the other by Mantlehood. So after 1950s, the school of thoughts was divided into two camps. One was led by Alan Merriam and the other one by Mantlehood. Scholars in 1960s rejected comparisons as a primary feature of ethnomusicology. In old times, this had been described as being savage is natural, primitive, exotic, and non-Western. However, these definitions have been greatly transformed. So, in essence, what they're trying to say is, the definition has transformed over a period of time, and it changes from time to time. In the 1970s and 80s, so if you notice, we are gradually moving on from each decade, and how the definition of ethnomusicology has changed over decades, right? So currently, let's understand how it changed in the 70s and 80s. So during the 1970s and 80s, anthropological concerns fused into these disciplines. So anthropological concerns means anthropological collections and the academic field of anthropology sort of merged into this discipline. Now this field analyzes music in its cultural settings and also sees how it is stored and generated. right? So in addition to that, what also happened was field work. So field work is the human face of this discipline. It is critical for it. So the field work would mean going to different places, capturing the folk songs, recording them, analyzing them. This is an important part of ethnomusicology. The musicologist assembles the primary sources and then makes observations, field notes, records music and interviews, and gleans through data from archives and libraries. So in addition to going to the field and making observations, recording it, interviewing people, right, they also go back and search for data, analyze the data from the archives and libraries as well. That's an important part of ethnomusicology. Fieldwork includes the recording of informant performances, interviews, photographs, and video recordings as well. So this is self-explanatory. And then folk music is a study of ethnomusicology. It stresses behavior in context and is quite different from performance settings that are associated with high elite Western culture. What it means is folk music is different from an angle that here the performance is not very important, which means the extravaganza for performance of going to a stage and performing, being conscious of what how you sound, be conscious of what you dress and all of that. That's different. That's from a that's important in a Western elite culture. However, folk music is very raw, very natural, and it stresses from a culture perspective. This is a product of musical tradition, and that has some continuity, variation, and communal selection as well. So which means that communal selection could mean, let's say, the folk from a particular community could be different. Let's say a folk from a particular community belonging to a particular region could be different from a different community or from a different region. It should be seen as having national and communal setting as well. So the folk music, like I already mentioned, it differs from place to place. It has an element of nationalism and it has an communal setting as well. So folk music researchers focus on text, texture, and content. Right? It's a summary of what we've discussed. It also looks into the terms of individual behaviors and in specific context as well. So individual behaviors could be different, and in specific context it could differ as well. So that's what they've researched, and they focus on text, texture, and content. Ethnomusicology is multifaceted means something which has different angles to it or different perspectives to it, and interdisciplinary field, right? So which means that although in the recent years it has found its place or found itself as a separate entity, it is interdisciplinary in nature, which means somewhere it crosses paths with other disciplines like anthropology, ethnography, etc. It includes not only field work but also depends on print media, including manuscripts, newspapers, documents, and statistical data as well. So field work is important in this field. I mean, in ethnomusicology. But apart from that, the subject also depends on print media, like manuscripts. Manuscripts are things written with hand, right? And newspapers, other documents, and libraries and archives, etc. The researchers often make their theoretical conclusions drawn from musicology and anthropology. So their theoretical conclusions are drawn from musicology and anthropology as well. Thus, they have a deep interest in linguistics, history, literature, religion, and folk. So if you understand, in summary, right, it like somewhere we also study that it can't have a single definition, or no single definition can be correct. It involves a lot of things, for instance, linguistics, history, literature, religion, folk, a communal element as well, and it's an overall amalgamation of all of these. And just to summarize, ethnomusicology Apart from fieldwork, it also depends on media, a lot of written information in the form of newspapers, documentations, archives, statistical data, and then so all of these combined makes what we call as ethnomusicology, and this is how it's related to the field of folklore and culture studies. So that's all we have here in today's session. I hope you enjoyed this session today, and if you are enjoying these sessions, I strongly recommend that you subscribe to this channel, so that if you think these sessions are adding value to you. And I will see you soon, sometime next week, with one more session of folklore and culture studies. Until then, enjoy yourself, have fun, take care, see you soon, bye bye.